Hey guys, Miss Shelly. All right, so today we're going to continue talking about circles with Baby Yoda, but today we're going to focus on area. So our last lesson was about circumference. Today we're going to talk about area. So let's just do a quick little review of the parts of a circle. So remember, the circumference is green, that goes around the circle. The circumference measures the distance around the circle. The diameter measures the distance across the circle through the center. The radius measures the distance from the outside of the circle to the center. Remember, there's two radiuses make up the diameter. Today we're going to talk about the pink. The pink is a scribble that you see inside the circle. That's the area. So the area measures the space inside the circle. So let's go ahead and talk about what the formula for area is. So for formula for area, we have area equals pi times radius squared. So the A stands for area. Remember, the area is the space inside the circle. The pi, we talked about that last class. And for area, we're still going to use 3.14 to represent pi. The R is the radius. Remember, the radius is half of the diameter, okay? So the radius is any point around the outside of the circle to the inside of the circle. So it's half of the diameter. And then that little 2 that's kind of sitting upstairs on the radius, that's what we call the square. So if you go back to 6th grade, you talked about squares in 6th grade. When we square a number, we're multiplying it by itself 2 times. So, for example, 6 squared would be 6 times 6. And we all know that 6 times 6 equals 36. The most important thing I want you to remember when we're doing this area is we're at home, so use a calculator, okay? You're going to have a lot of decimals when we're dealing with area, so please feel free to use a calculator. This is the one time you're going to hear me say that, okay? So let's go ahead and look at some problems. So up first, I have another hockey ball. This time it tells me that the radius is 3 inches. It wants me to find the area inside the hockey ball. So I'm going to plug my radius into my formula. So that means that I have area equals pi. Instead of my r for radius, I'm going to plug my 3 square. Now, let's come over here and take a look at 3 squared. So what 3 squared tells me is that I'm going to do 3 times 3. And what is 3 times 3? That's 9. So now I have area equals pi times 9. Now remember, if you remember from last class, we talked about for pi, we're going to use 3.14 times 9. And when I hop on my calculator and I punch that in, that's going to give me an area of 28.26. And I have just found my area. Okay, so let's take another look at another problem that also gives me the radius. Now I have my basketball hoop. You'll remember this problem from our last video, hopefully. But now I want to figure out what the inside measure of this basketball hoop is. So just like before, I'm going to take and I'm going to plug my 9 inches, my radius, in. So I have area equals pi. Instead of my r for radius, I'm going to plug 9 square. So just like we did last time, let's come off to the side and let's figure out what 9 square is. Remember, 9 squared, that square tells me to multiply 9 by itself 2 times. So that would be 9 times 9, which equals 81. So now I can come and substitute that back into my formula. So now I have area equals pi times 81. Let's change my pi to 3.14 times 81. And when you punch that into your calculator, you're going to get an area of 254.34 inches square. Now, we're using inches square because we have square here, so we need to have square here. And that's my final answer. So it's not really hard at all. when we know what our radius is. But what if it doesn't give us our radius? What if it only gives us our diameter? So we're looking here at circles, or more famously, I guess originally called BB-8. I still like circles. Here it gives me the diameter. Now, if we remember when we went back and we talked about our parts of a circle, the radius is 2 of the diameter. So 2 radiuses equal 1 diameter. But for my formula, I need to know what the radius is, not the diameter. So in order to figure out what my radius is, I'm going to divide my diameter by 2. So that means that 26 divided by 2, that gives me a radius of 13. So now that I know what my radius is, I can substitute that into my formula. So area equals pi times 13 squared. Now remember, I'm going to come off to the side and figure out what my 13 squared is. So 13 squared, remember that square tells me to multiply 13 by itself 2 times. So 13 times 13, which gives me 169. So now I can plug that back into my formula. Area equals pi times 139. I'm going to write my numbers for pi, 3.14 times 139. And I'm going to jump on my calculator and calculate that. And it's going to give me an area of 530.66 inches squared. So not too bad, right? Now, let's take another look. Let's take a look at Baby Yoda. So Baby Yoda here has a basketball. This time, though, we know what the area is. We know that the inside space of my circle is 78.5 inches. Now, I need to figure out what my radius is. So, since I know what my area is, I can plug 78.5 in for my area. So area, it's not going to be area equals, it's actually going to be 78.5 equals pi times r squared. I'm going to substitute what I know pi is, the 3.14 times r squared. Now, right now I need to get my r squared by itself. In order to get r squared by itself, I need to get rid of that multiplying 3.14. So in order to do that, I need to do the inverse. The opposite of multiplying by 3.14 is dividing by 3.14. So I'm going to divide each side by 3.14. 3.14 divided by 3.14 is 1, or r squared, equals, now remember I'm going to use my calculator, and when I divide 78.5 by 3.14, it's going to give me 25. Now, 25 is my radius squared. I need to know what just my radius is. So I need to ask myself, what two numbers can I multiply together that will equal 25? So I really had to think about my multiplication facts. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. So that tells me that 5 times 5 is 25. So if I just want to know what r is, not r squared, r would just be equal to 5. So this would be r and that would be r. So my final radius is 5. Now, you can't just stop at 25 equals radius squared, because I need to know what the radius is, not what the radius is when it's squared. Okay, so make sure that you take that final step into figuring out what just the radius is, not what the radius squared is. Let's take another look at an example kind of like this. So here I have another picture of the world, and it says that the area is 28.26 meters. So once again, I'm going to plug what I know area is into my formula. So that gives me 28.26 equals pi times radius squared. Now I need to rewrite my pi for 3.14 times radius squared. So once again, I don't have radius squared by itself, so I need to get rid of it. I'm multiplying 3.14 to radius squared, so I need to do the opposite of that. The opposite of multiplying 3.14 is dividing 3.14. So I'm going to divide 3.14 on both sides. When I divide 3.14 divided by 3.14, that gives me r times radius squared. 1 times r squared, or just r squared. And then when I plug in 28.26 divided by 3.14 in my calculator, it gives me 9. Now remember, this is radius squared. I need to know what radius is. I need to know what number can I multiply itself by to get 9. So remember, these are my two radiuses, and that's what I need to figure out. So let's just start. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. So remember, I'm looking for that number that I multiply by itself to get to my number 9. So that tells me that r equals 3. And that's my radius. What if the problem gives me the circumference? But it gives me the circumference, but it wants to know what the area is. How can I find the area when I only know the circumference? Well, it's pretty simple. It's 3 steps in order to do this. So the first thing that we need to do whenever we're given the circumference and we want to find the area, the very first thing is we want to find the diameter. So we're going to solve the circumference problem just like we solved it last class. So last class, when we were given the circumference, we plugged that into our formula, and that helped us find the diameter. That's exactly what we want to do here. So we want to plug our circumference into our formula of circumference equals pi times diameter. So we're going to plug that in. And now I'm going to rewrite pi for what I know it is, 3.14 times the diameter. Remember, I want to get diameter by itself. In order to get the diameter by itself, I need to do the inverse. So instead of multiplying by 3.14, I want to divide by 3.14. 3.14 divided by 3.14 gives me 1. So that leaves me with my diameter equals. And when I plug 176 divided by 3.14 into my calculator, I'm going to get 56.0 and some numbers. I'm just going to round that to 56. So now I know what my diameter is. In order to plug my diameter in to my area formula, I need to know what my radius is. So my second step is to find the radius. Remember, if you're taking notes along with this lesson, don't forget you can always pause the lesson to take notes and then unpause so you can continue going. So remember, the radius is 2 of the diameter. 2 radiuses equal 1 diameter. So in order to figure out what the radius is, I just need to divide the diameter by 2. 56 divided by 2 is 28. So now that I know what my radius is, I can now find my area. So step 3, find area. So I'm just going to plug that into my formula. Area equals pi times radius squared. So area equals pi times my radius, which is 28 square. Remember, we kind of want to go off to the side and figure out what 28 square is. So 28 square equals 28 times 28. And when you plug that into your calculator, it will tell you that it is 784. So that means that my area equals pi times 784. Now let's plug what we know pi to be, 3.14 times 784. And when I multiply those two together, I get an area of 2,461.76. And that's all it is. So it's nothing difficult, guys. It's just remembering what we've previously learned about circumference to help us solve for the area. So just a quick little recap, 3 simple steps. First step, find the diameter. Plug your circumference into your circumference formula, solve, and you'll find the diameter. Once you find the diameter, you'll go to step 2 and you'll find the radius. Remember, the radius is 2 of the diameters, so you need to divide the diameter by 2. When you do that, you'll then take your radius and plug it into your area formula and solve. So let's take a look at another problem when it gives us circumference. So our final problem, it tells us that the circumference of the donut is 27 centimeters and it wants to know what the area is. So remember, 3 steps. First step, diameter. In order to find the diameter, we have to use our circumference formula. So we can plug 27 in for circumference. That gives us pi times diameter. Now we can plug 3.14 in for pi times diameter. Remember, we need to get diameter by itself. In order to do that, we need to do the inverse of multiplying by 3.14. The opposite or inverse of multiplying by 3.14 is dividing by 3.14. 3.14 divided by 3.14 gives us 1 times that diameter, or just the diameter. When I divide 27 by 3.14, I get 8.6. So now that I found my diameter, now I need to find my radius. Remember, the radius is 2 of the diameter. So in order to find what that is, I just need to take my diameter, 8.6, and divide it by 2. When I do that, I get 4.3. So this tells me that my radius is 4.3. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to plug that into my formula for area. Remember, area equals pi times radius squared. So I know that my radius is 4.3 squared. So we're going to come out to the side and figure out what 4.3 squared is. Remember, all 4.3 squared is 4.3 multiplied by itself 2 times. So 4.3 times 4.3 is 18.49. So now that I have that, I can take that and plug that back into my area formula. So area equals pi times 18.49. I know what pi is. I know that pi is equal to 3.14. So that'll be 3.14 times 18.49. When I multiply those two together, I get an area of 58.1. All right, guys, and that's it. That is all we're doing in today's lesson. If you need to go back and watch any part of this because you got confused, please do that, okay? Remember, you can always go back and rewatch these videos more than once. No one is telling you that you cannot. Please do so if you need to. Now you're going to hop on back over to Teams and you're going to complete today's area of circles drag and drop. Now, it's going to look very familiar. The setup is very similar to the circumference drag and drop, but this is for looking for area. Each box will tell you if you're looking for the area or for the radius. So good luck, guys, and always remember, I miss you so much.